Phil Gallagher of ThrabenU here for another Legacy stream. Today's stream is brought to you by Kinda MTG, and we're playing with a rather interesting brew. So we are playing Kroxa Stiflenought, essentially. So half of this equation you're probably familiar with. Phyrexian Dreadnought is a 12/12 for 1 mana if you can stop its ETB trigger, which we have the capability of doing with Stifle and Torpor Orb. And that's cool and all, but that's old tech. Here's the new tech. Well, we can play a Kroxa and then stifle its trigger to also have a 6/6 on turn 2. Realistically, turn 3 to have stifle mana. Or we can put one of these two things into the graveyard and then copy it with Lazav. So he can become a copy of a creature in my graveyard if I pay that creature's converted mana cost. And wouldn't you know it, these two things that we want to like cheat into play somehow have a very low converted mana cost. This plan is supplemented by a rather interesting plan of Ashiok and Liliana the Last Hope, which we can fuel out via Dark Ritual, and we also have Bobs that are a decent thing to Dark Ritual out. So in some ways it almost feels like we're playing like some sort of mono black deck in that like Dark Ritual into like Bob and Thoughtseize is like a real plan that we're trying to do, but we have a decent amount of other stuff going on here. So like if you look at the basic lands, it's kind of revealing, right? There's no basic island. Island is not really something we're super worried about protecting. We're largely a black deck with blue and red as the support colors. The sideboard has a mix of things. You know, you have 4 extra removal cards, 4 grave hate cards, 6/7 counter spells. Morning, Bentley. Hope all is well. With that being said, let's just go ahead and jump into a league and see how this goes. Had a rough couple of past streams. I think I've 0-5'd more in the past week and a half than I have in the past, like, 2 years. South Carolina can't be that bad, right? I, like, 100% have to keep this hand, right? Dark Ritual Ashiok Go is 100% the memeing that we're looking to do here. Tier 1 only channel confirmed. Yeah, we are in a very interesting stretch of the donation queue, to say the least. Oh, it looks like we are playing against Reanimator, and we have the turn 1 weak Grave Hate card. I'm okay with that. This also, like, happens to stop Entomb and the fetch lands. So this is cool. Nice. Feels good. We won a game on turn 1 with an Ashiok. Oh no! Oh no! Ooh. So if I were the opponent, I would have not shame conceded there. I would have definitely played out that game to figure out what nonsense I'm doing. Oh. So I have like a lot of other things that I can go and bring in. I don't know that I'm going to bring in all of this, but these are the things that I'm going to be thinking about. I don't really need a Braids. I don't really need Liliana the Last Hope. Excuse me. My blue count for Force of Will kind of stinks. Oh, never mind. I guess I have Ashiok. It's not as bad as I thought. This is only my graveyard, right? Only my graveyard. So... probably should cut these Torpor Orbs. I don't know if I'm supposed to actually try a creature that actually gets into play. I feel like I'm supposed to stop the creatures before they get into play. And if something does get into play, I try to make a bigger creature and deal with it that way. I want to cut Lazav, but Lazav is blue. So I don't think I'm supposed to cut Lazav. I think I'm going to trim a Kroxa. Dark Ritual plus Ashiok is a combo, so I don't know that I want to trim that. And maybe I'm going to tap out too much for Spell Pierce to actually just be insane. So I have 22 lands, which is a decent amount of lands, but I'm not playing cantrips. My opponent says, cool. Looking forward to watching myself get trounced in the replay. I think my hand is kind of weak, but we have Brainstorm to fix it, and, like, Leyline is really good, especially if my opponent isn't expecting it. I'm guessing they would be expecting it after Dark Ritual into Ashiok. Like, that says, this boy is playing 4 Leylines, like nothing else. But if my opponent, like, keeps a strong 6 that doesn't have an answer to a Leyline, I'm probably pretty well off. Oh man, just pass. Rats. Surprise, I have more colors in here. I can't wait to see what my opponent says in response to seeing this hand. It's probably going to be amusing. Taking the Brainstorm seems wise. Alright, next turn I make a 12-12. That seems okay. That is a good clock. Someday I will shake this cough. Today is not that day. If this first round is any indication, today's stream is going to be really fun. Thursday's stream was just silly with late lines. But today is probably a good line between competitive and fun. I don't think I'm supposed to Ashiok here. I think I am just supposed to make a big. I've done it. We have our opponent on a 2-turn clock, with Graveyard Hate in play and Ashiok as a follow-up. What noise does a Dreadnought make? Some sort of, like, horrible, awful screeching noise? That's what I'm imagining. Moo? Bentley, I'll take it that you are an animal expert and just assume you are correct here. Ooh. We have sent 3 creatures to the Shadow Realm. This is great. GG's. But Min, what does this... Yes, thank you, Min. Thank you. We brought back, like, the... It's gotta be at least 4 years old now, right? Like 2016 memes. What does the fox say here? Oh. 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 Am I old? Am I old? I feel old. Yikes. That whole time compression thing is real. I'm not very good at placing things into when they came out. What are the big pros of Grixis? Well, I can say, with the extensive 2 games that I have played with this deck list, that it has not lost yet. So I'd say not losing is the upside of this deck list. Maybe towards the end of the stream, I'll have a better feel for that, but you know, I have no true answer to that yet. So this was a donation deck list from Kinda MTG Kinda. Which way did that go? Kinda MTG. So they'll probably show up in chat in a bit, and you can ask them then. Speak of the devil, and he shall appear. Yes, we won round 1 very handily. Alright, your Duder resolves, and it's kind of awkward against my Duder, but that's okay. Do I want to brainstorm in response? Like, is there anything I actually want to hit? No, it really required 2 cards for me to hit to be, like, super happy with this. So we'll save that brainstorm for later. This is awkward. Uro is a sweet magic card that, like, definitely deserves more love than it is getting now. This bugger is going to do a lot of effective, not actual damage, but effective damage to us this game. Oh, I'm very aware of that. So I'm probably looking at either play Kroxa. What are we doing mid? Yeah. I'm probably looking at either like another Kroxa or Lazav and Brainstorm on my next turn, depending on what my opponent does here. I think it's probably Lazav. So that's kind of cool. And then if I cast that and resolve it and I plus here, this thing doesn't get to keep fishing cards out of the graveyard. Which is neat. It may actually be fine to do this, because next turn I can cast Lazav and then copy it and potentially play around the Lightning Bolt if my opponent taps a red source on their turn. Otherwise, it's Brainstorm, try to fetch away some of these lands. I don't really have game 1 answers to creatures, I just have 3 of Braids, and then Lily kind of counts. Let's go for the diversity here. This is just a distraction. This is all this really is. Alright, now I've made it abundantly clear that I don't have counterspells. So I think I'm now too far gone to catch up in this game. Like, I'm going to get wastelanded, so I'm not going to have the quick ability to just, like, get a 6/6 into play. I'm taking 4 a turn, and I'll probably take another 6 surprise damage at some point to something. Oh, jeez. Alright, now we know what the green's for. And now... And that's a shame. Like, without that Oko in there, that Stifle was an amazing draw. Because I could have just, like, played Kroxa, let my opponent discard, stifled the trigger, had a 6/6, and had a realistic chance at racing. Because this has a different name, so I could have ended up with 2 Kroxas and hit my opponent for 6, followed by 12, which would have outraced them. Alright, I'm not 100% dead. Just mostly dead. So let's go blue, black, play Lazav, and pass, holding up both Stifle and Kroxa copy. And we'll see what we can do with this. Rough. can go into my graveyard. So now my opponent can, like, wasteland me pre-combat, and then, yeah, just bolt it now that I can't play around that. Alright, we're gonna go ahead and concede to that. Because, like, they plus on the food. We take 6, 7, 10 this turn if they're willing to just bolt me directly. And then pretty much any creature that I put into play isn't going to be good enough. Alright, Blast, Triumphs, and Plague Engineers are my removal spells of choice. Ashiok is very bad against Delver strategies since it doesn't impact the board. So I'll be taking those out as my first cuts, and then probably trimming one of the Torpor Orbs as well. Feels kind of bad to try to rely on Torpor Orb if my opponent is playing an Oko deck. And a deck that's pressuring me a lot. It's also possible that I should cut the second Torpor Orb just for like a Spell Piercer Force of Will. Force of Will is a little sketch since we're playing Bobs. So I think I'm going to go with a Pierce. So historically, in the couple of times that I've played these Stiflenought strategies versus Delver, nope. I haven't super loved them because you're trying to set up something that's a little bit janky against a deck that has a decent amount of pressure, as well as the ability to disrupt you from a couple of different angles. So I want Badlands in terms of moving forward, but I think I'm supposed to get one of my blue lands so that I don't like super telegraph a Stifle. This is pretty interesting. Brazen Borrower is kind of a kick in the teeth versus my strategy. I think it's between Brazen Borrower and Brainstorm here. Like, my opponent's hand is very little if I take this Brainstorm. And potentially I can make them discard the Brazen Borrower at some point this game. I'm going to go ahead and take the Brainstorm. I don't love how Brazen Borrower and other split cards tend to interact with Magic Online. They very frequently do weird things, especially with, like, importing deck lists and such. So this is interesting. My opponent has led on Tropical Island over Volcanic Island, so they don't actually have Lightning Bolt available to them this turn. So I could play Dark Ritual Bob, like, I could fetch, play Dark Ritual Bob, hold up Spell Pierce for Lightning Bolt. But I think I'd rather try to do that naturally next turn. This is really weird to me. Like, I wonder if they think I have Wastelands or something. And since they have the second drop, they're just playing out the first drop first. They're holding up Fog. That is a real possibility. I don't understand this pause from my opponent. Like, if their draw for turn was a Stifle, like, you snap Stifle this. Otherwise, there shouldn't be anything to think about here. So I'm going to act under the assumption that my opponent has a needy doggo in the room who needed some pets. All right, nice. So with that bolt gone, our Bob is now safer. So if we draw a land, we have Bob, and we can beat Force of Will, Pitch Brazen Borrower via Spell Pierce. I also may just like Dark Ritual out the Bob next turn. Yeah, I thought for sure they were going to discard the land. I think I am going to Dark Ritual out the Bob. It's weird. But, like, I know that my opponent has an answer to the Bob already in Force of Will. So I kind of think I'm supposed to do it. It's a weird hemorrhaging of resources, but it's not like the rituals are doing a lot since I boarded out the Ashioks already. And this is going to let me play around, like, Daze and some other things as well. So you're just going to attempt to bounce this. I mean, so I'll bite and Spell Pierce this, and if you want to force so that you get to play the other side of Brazen Borrower later, I'm okay with it. Please don't have a bolt for this Bob now. Yeah, I'm more okay with that than bolt for my Bob. My opponent also played the other Valk instead of the Trop that I knew about. I think I'm supposed to Brainstorm. If nothing else, it lets me set up the Bob. So I can put back the Stifle probably doesn't matter too much at this point. It can protect from an Oko activation once. So this is kind of interesting. Like, I can put back land, and fetch. I could put back land, stifle, and fetch. I could put back some combination of cards and then get a land for free during my next upkeep. So I like know that I'm guaranteed to hit my next land drop. So I can cast Kroxa. My opponent still has Force of Will. This Lily's okay. So I think I'm going to put back land, play Tarn, pass, set a stop on my own upkeep. That way I can take one of these lands, but I don't have to take both of the lands. Tivox, thank you very much for following. Hope you're enjoying the content. So we'll upkeep, take nothing off of Bob, then fetch so I don't draw the second land. So I already have red, so I want black as well as blue, so I'll take another Underground Sea here. So I know my opponent has a Force of Will. Alright, let's play out a land. Let's try our attacks. We're going to play Kroxa into Daze this turn. Because next turn I can get kind of cute with Lily and Kroxa, in all likelihood. I don't think it particularly matters what I exile as long as it is not a creature. Goodbye Force of Will, and we saw that hit play too. And somebody else just follows. Cernamon, thank you very much for following. That was a very quick shuffle. Alright, Bob, be good to me. Good job, Bob. So I can Lily, return Kroxa, cast Kroxa, and just make my opponent discard a card. Sorry, I was just thinking about like Dark Ritual situations where I can potentially put enough cards in the graveyard to just hardcast this turn, and I don't think I'm getting there. What is the plan to survive TNN? Race it or draw one of our 3 edicts? Those are the plans. Lily milling Plague Engineer would also be pretty hot. That's true. I guess there are also worlds where I should have considered casting this Dark Ritual. Prior to this Lily. In case I need to, like, stifle that land for some reason. Nope, okay. Dreadnought. That is mighty interesting. That's better than Kroxa. I'm going to take that. So now I can play around Daze by Dark Ritualing. Does it play around Spell Pierce too? So I get 4 mana. I need 2 of it. Yeah, it does play around Spell Pierce too. Actually, this doesn't play around Daze because I would have to pay using my blue. Nice. So now we theoretically race. but it probably also involved me killing my Bob next turn with my Lily if my Lily's still around. God, another Brazen Borrower? That is so rude. So rude. Eldorte, the deck list is on screen if you click the Cardboard Live extension. So I am dead next turn to just 6 in the air because my opponent had the other Brazen Borrower. Oh, that's tilting. We were doing cool things. Alright, I've killed myself with the Kroxa. I regret nothing. But we probably won if our opponent didn't have Brazen Borrower there. So, I regret nothing. I got. Chibi Mateo, thank you very much for following. Turn 1, pass with Stifle up. Turn 2, make a 12-12. I'm in. We're playing against Cherry X-Man, who has historically played some decks that are very much of my nature. We've sent some messages back and forth about various Chalice piles. But I don't know what he's been working on most recently. I like the cut of your jib. Just Karn minus get coding. Alright, that's going to be pretty good. Like, do we beat this? So I can play out Delta and actually produce a 12-12. Hey, I guess that's the plan. But bridge is real good here. Real talk? Do I just stifle that? If I do, I get Rashad imported, though. I think it's fine to stifle that. Because I have another stifle, too. Oh, man. Oh, man. So my opponent might have had, like, an artifact land they were trying to go get or something. Hey, guys. Just in case you weren't aware, activated abilities of my Phyrexian Dreadnought cannot be activated. This game is great. This is Pinnacle magic right here. Legacy 2020. So I do probably still need to kill the Karn. Because it represents the ability to get bridge, and I don't just want to, like, fold to that. So this is going to kill Karn no matter what. Let's just do that now. Trample is strong. Now, I think I'm going to brainstorm before I Thoughtseize. Because there's worlds where I will just hit things that are better than Thoughtseizing. Especially since I have this Dark Ritual. Oh man. Oh man. Okay. So Bloodstained Mire is going back, because that card does nothing. I could produce a second Dreadnought and present lethal. But double Thoughtseize is probably pretty sweet. I don't think I can pass that up. Actually, I can Torpor Dreadnought and Thoughtseize. 1, 2, 3, 4. Torpor Dreadnought and Thoughtseize. That's probably better than double Thoughtseize. Yeah. I'll do the Thoughtseize first. I don't think it matters, though. Yeah, those things are not going to do things. Alright, so it's turn 3. We have 24 power in play. My deck is great. I'm enjoying myself. So, my opponent is playing some sort of black stompy deck that may or may not include the curses. So I absolutely don't want any of that. Stuff over here I can consider. So a big part about whether or not Ashiok is good against my opponent is whether or not they are actually trying to search their library. So my opponent could have some tutor effects ranging from the curses to just something like Beseech the Queen or equivalent. So Ashiok may or may not have text beyond the milling. The milling's also slightly awkward with Karn. I think I'm going to lean towards counterspells in. And then I would need to make 2 more cuts. Oh yeah, opponent's deck probably has some number of Lily Last Hope, Lily Veil, Ashioks. I would expect that. Kind of lean. Actually, maybe I'm supposed to cut fetch lands over actual mana producing lands, as weird as that sounds. I think I'm going to trim 2 fetch lands. Because between Ashiok and Spyglass, I may lose access to some fetch lands over the course of the game. I don't think I get the luxury of cutting Kroxa. I just don't think that's something that I'm going to get to do. God, opponent just opening up on another absolute beater. You can have a land, I guess. Force of Will, you are a touch late to the party. I don't like doing it, but I think I have to do it. And I think I'm just going to cash this in to put a card into my graveyard for future Kroxa reasons. So, like, I see myself not Kroxa Stifle turn 3, I see myself Lily turn 3, in case my opponent starts, like, creating constructs. Ill-gotten gains, okay. I will just keep giving my opponent lands. We're not very good against Planeswalkers. That's a note. So I have red, red, I need black, black. Do I want to get back the Kroxa here, or just start working towards an ultimate and winning the game in that fashion? So I have 1, 2, 3 cards in graveyard. I can put cards 4 and 5 into the graveyard and then actually just hardcast this on my turn 5. I would love to spike a creature off of this minus. It's high roll. I did. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4 cards in graveyard. If I don't have my 4th land, I would need to spike it for Kroxa. So I guess I'll just take Kroxa and attack my opponent's hand with it. So something subtle that you might not have noticed is that my opponent was playing Ill-Gotten Gains. So that returns up to 3 cards from your graveyard to hand. So that's supposed to be a combo with Leyline of the Void. So I can take the rest of my opponent's hand by going Kroxa into Thoughtseize, or Thoughtseize into Kroxa. So, but I kind of want to Brainstorm first, because I would like to hit my next land drop pretty badly. JK, that's not a thing that's happening. So touch rough. I can't even mill the top 2 this turn. I'll have to Brainstorm later. I can put back Thoughtseize, Brainstorm, play out Kroxa. Opponent will lose a card to it. So now I have Force of Will available for whatever nonsense my opponent gets. Like that. You can have a Collective Brutality. They are using the Duress mode and they miss. So I know that the top card in my library isn't great. Come on, Brainstorm. Find me that land. Bob is okay. So we'll put back Thoughtseize, followed by Brainstorm. Play out Bob, plus Lily on nothing. Pass. So opponent has access to a decent number of interesting options off of Karn. Yeah, that's kind of what I was expecting. Hold on, can I not actually see what they got back? Yeah, I cannot actually see what they got back. That's kind of annoying. Okay, the Lily was the last card there. Alright, it does not display in chat log. I guess I would have figured that out as soon as I looked at their hand size. So I have a card I don't want on top. So I should probably Lily minus put my Bob into play as my first step of this turn. And I'll Brainstorm now to try and set up the Bob. I could put back Bob, Kroxa, hold up, Spell Pierce. No, I'm probably going to discard Spell Pierce. I want a Bob on top of my library, I think. Like, Bob, reveal Bob is pretty good. Yeah, so I'm going to put back Kroxa, Bob, play land, play Bob, set a stop on my upkeep. I've already activated this. And see what we can do with this. This is a very intricate game. Helm of Obedience. So since my opponent is going to Lily plus anyway, I think I just go ahead and cash in this Spell Pierce here. So I have blue, I have red, I have black, so I am good on colors. I'm going to take another Volcanic Island. So now I am dead to Karn minus, get Leyline, and Helm me next turn. So I'm... Hello, Abrade. I shuffled, so that's wonderful. So awkwardly, I can't both Kroxa and Abrade. I'm 1 mana short of that. So I can minus on this construct, attack Lily, trade the construct for a Lily activation. Then Abrade the Helm after my opponent casts Leyline. Seems like the plan. So my opponent is going to start their turn off with Lily Plus and try to make me discard this Abrade. Yeah, that's true. I messed up. But now I think I'm just going to pass the turn. Make your point and move on. You don't need to keep beating the dead horse. A second Helm. We might just naturally mill out. Like, Leyline aside. Now they're going to Spyglass my Lily. Which I can Abrade that if I want, but then, like, how am I beating his Helm? Alright. So, what is the line? I can hope to spike a second Abrade to answer both Helms, or I can hope to spike a counterspell and beat the Leyline. I have used 3 of my 4 Force of Wills, and Spell Pierce doesn't do it. So playing towards a counterspell is not great. I have 2 Abrades remaining to hit. Or the other option is find some way to deal 6 damage to the card in this turn, which I don't think I can do. Yeah, I need to play towards the 2 remaining Abrades. This feels bad. That is not gonna do it. So I'll pass and represent Force of Will. That'll do. That's good enough. Now I live in fear of, like, death every single turn, or just die to the Karn Great Creator getting Mycosynthelatus. That's fine. So I definitely made a mistake in that game by not abrading pre-combat, and I lost a Bob because of it. But with my opponent having the second Helm and that follow-up other Karn, I don't think I was winning that one anyway. So, like, I definitely punted, and I'll own up to that fact. But I think we are on the wrong side of the equation anyway. Our opponent has had, I think, very powerful starts in these first couple of games, because both times they've gone Dark Ritual Lotus Petal into a turn 1 Planeswalker. So a lot of my graveyard-oriented stuff is not great, but I don't really have good cards to bring in. Like, Ashiok is not great against this deck. Plague Engineer on Construct, like, I guess technically does things, but not a lot. Liliana's Triumph, similarly, not doing a lot. So I think even though Lazav is probably medium, I'm going to keep it. Like, I think Lazav and Fetch Lands are of similar value. I will keep this hand. So the goal is to play turn 2 Torpor Orb in all likelihood into turn 3 6/6. Can remove the stop on my own upkeep. Jerryman, if you go Swamp, Dark Ritual, Lotus Petal 3 games in a row, I'm gonna be a little upset. Three games in a row. All right. Okay. I will need to draw a third land naturally for that, but it's not like there's a lot I can do about it. I'm getting significantly slowed down by that. Probably more than just appearances would indicate, because I've boarded out 2 lands. So I think I have 20 hits for lands. Okay, that's fine. So I don't actually need anything this is kind of a tough, because I can give myself red for Kroxa coming back, or I can give myself blue for Lazav. I think I'm just cheating Kroxa into play via Torpor Orb, though. So I think I want to have access to blue this game. Actually, if I don't care about casting Lily Last Hope, I could just get Valk, and then that gives me blue and red. And then if I spike black, I have black for Kroxa reasons. Yeah, that's fine. So now I'm just kind of hoping that my opponent doesn't have a big Haymaker in addition to the other opening things that they've had. That's fine. Collective Brutality doesn't actually hit the cards that I care about with this hand. Like, losing the Abrade stinks a little bit, but, like, it's certainly not the end of the world. So we get a 6/6. This is potentially a very fast clock. So now I can play Lazav and get a Dreadnought next turn. Well, kind of. Like, you know what I mean. So next turn we use 3 mana to cast the Dreadnought, and then 1 mana to copy. Ensnaring Bridge is a beating here. So I have black, black, red, red. So it doesn't matter really what I get here. I'll get an Underground Sea for just differences and thin the deck a little bit. Alright, so I get 1, 2, 3. Cast that Dreadnought. Copy the Dreadnought. Pay 1. I am a big boy. I attack for 18. What a game. Mail me for 2 on the way out. Oh, just 1. GG's, friend. GG's. What a ridiculous game of Magic. Opponent had some very, very strong openers there. So I'm pretty happy we took that one down. Burn Gobbo, if you click the Cardboard Live extension on screen, you can also see all of the cards that way. So for anyone who's tuned in recently, hi, my name's Phil Gallagher. I run ThrabenU. I'm streaming Legacy about 3 days a week, and I put out D&T content on my YouTube channel, which is also ThrabenU creatively, every weekday. Today we are playing with a donation deck list, courtesy of Kinda MTG, a very weird Lazav Stiflenought hybrid deck. We are currently 2-1. We got Delvered pretty badly. So far about the deck we've learned we're pretty soft to Planeswalkers, and that we don't necessarily have a ton of interaction for opposing creatures. I'm glad you enjoyed the article. That one was difficult to write. There was a lot going on there. Alright, so we are playing against Esper Humans. And I can produce a turn 2 12/12. So we'll keep this hand. I mean, you can only play so many different meme deck lists at once, you know? I expect no changes Monday. Get him. I'm fine with riding a Bob to victory this game instead. Astrolabe is like at the very bottom of my list of problems right now. It's like I wouldn't even consider it a real problem. There are so many like way, way scarier cards in the format right now. I'm glad you enjoyed it. That podcast is going to be very, very good in a few weeks once we have some better chemistry, I guess is the word. So, like, I think for a first episode of a podcast, that was absolutely amazing. Like, I'm very, very happy with that. But it'll get even better once we get better at, like, reading each other, learning how to transition, that sort of stuff. So, I expect great things from that podcast. Clay Frank, thank you very much for following. As well as Klobster, PRG12, Radukov. I think I missed a handful of you during the last game. I was more focused on what was going on than the old stream manager behind the scenes. My opponent's deck has like one Wasteland pre-board, and if my opponent's Wastelanding me while I have a Bob in play, that's totally winning. Well, opponent is not playing Esper Humans. Opponent has finally given up and started to play a good deck. Mentor pre-board is interesting. I have a strong, strong hatred for the Esper Humans deck. But JTL has asked me not to rip onto his deck list anymore, so I won't. The Mentor main board is interesting. So I'm deterministically dead here. And as soon as my opponent casts a Brain Freeze targeting me, I'm going to concede. But I want to see how many of my opponent's cards I get to see before that happens. So this is probably the last Brain Freeze that they'll need targeting themselves. Oh no, they changed targets to me with that last one. So I'll go ahead and concede there. Alright, so we're going to get Leyline, Pierce, Force, Blast as things that we can board in. I'm probably not boarding in all of this stuff. Raced. So you should watch the VOD later of my previous round versus Cherryman, where we played this like crazy match versus Mono Black. I think I'm not going to get cute and try to interrupt with a Braid. This is probably not going to end up being good enough. These are not going to be good enough. Yeah. I guess Plague Engineer is okay. So just like name Monk with that. Yeah, we're shooting to record about every other week. So like I need these, I need these, I need these, I need to trim a little bit of my creature package. I might be tapping out enough or dragging the game long enough that like my spell pierces might not be all that amazing. I'm supposed to cut some numbers of like Stifle, Torpor Orbs, and Dreadnoughts here, I think. Maybe a land. Like junk 1 land. Junk the Torpor Orbs, junk 1 Dreadnought. Turn 1 Ashiok's very good against my opponent. They have to do everything in 1 turn, and then they also don't get to set things up via Enlightened Tutor, and they don't get to fetch. So Ashiok is going to be very good. I don't think we're keeping. So one of the things we talked about on the podcast was that you really need a clock in order to win. And like, if I just put Leyline into play and back it up with 1 force, I don't know that this is actually going to be good enough. Like, it's cool because I can stifle my opponent's first land drop, and this buys a decent amount of time. But I don't have anything to actually dump into the graveyard with Lazav. I don't have a Brainstorm to fix his hand. I'm missing land drops. I think I can do better on 6. Yo. Keep. Junk a Leyline. Done. Start with a Leyline in play. Okay. Land. Fetch. Is probably Badlands for black and red for Kroxa. That way hitting any land is going to let me cast the Kroxa. Dark Ritual. Powerful magic card. Ashiok. Nice. So depending on what lands my opponent kept, this could be somewhere between brutal and game-winning. No, because there's a very good chance that I win this game via mill. So I think I am supposed to keep both Ashioks. I might be minusing on myself this turn. Didn't really make sense to last turn. Because, like, I need to hit the land to Kroxa, and I don't want to potentially remove lands from my deck yet. So the thing about this, though, is that I still need 4 mana to do this, so I'm not really sure that it does make sense to mill myself yet. So I think I'm still going to continue to go for them. So minusing this time around puts Ashiok in range of Lightning Bolt, but I don't know that my opponent is playing the version with Lightning Bolt since they have Mentor main deck. So I can still mill myself next turn if I rip a land next turn. So we'll continue on the current plan. We have hit a Brain Freeze. and 1 breach so far. So we have decreased the chance of my opponent going off, but not eliminated it. Keep in mind that my opponent still does have 7 cards, so we can still just lose to my opponent having the entirety of the combo plus a wear tear. It would have to involve like Lotus Petals and not fetch lands. So like it's super unlikely that we die, but not outside of the realm of possibility. So ultimate price, it potentially decreases the number of lands that are in my deck, right? So it can change the ratios. It may or may not actually decrease my chances of drawing a land. I like that. So whatever we take with Thoughtseize, we get to exile. So my opponent can hide their best cards. I'm going to use like big round numbers here. So like right now, I might have something like a 20 out of 50 chance of drawing a land. And then if I mill myself and I hit, say, 4 lands, I'd have a 16 out of 46 chance of drawing a land. Whereas if I hit 4 non-lands, it would be the other way around. So this Thoughtseize is probably pretty cool. So my opponent has put some cards on top of their library, and I now mill those away, I think. It's possible that my opponent has put back their worst cards, and I am not actually supposed to Ashiok minus here, and I'm supposed to let 2 turns go by. This is like super interesting. I think because I have the follow-up Ashiok, I am supposed to still minus here. But if I didn't have the follow-up Ashiok, I think I would just pass the turn. Oh, nice. So my opponent has 1 Underworld Breach remaining. Alright, Lightning Bolt the Ashiok. That's okay. If my opponent's last 3 cards are Breach LED Brain Freeze, do I actually lose? No. Their last card being Mentor is pretty good. Sorry, they have 2 cards left. I think I just bob here. We'd like to find Plague Engineer or a land to put Kroxa into play. Kroxa tramples? Kroxa does not trample. So I expect that all right, let's move past the statistics. Like it's it's not a meaningful conversation at this point. But, like, regardless, since I can't hit the 4th land, it is correct to not mill myself. So, like, that part we should at least be able to agree on. It's slightly awkward that I don't have a blue producing land in play already for this brainstorm. All right, I said we were moving past the statistics talk. Sorry, I'm timing you out. Like, it's not worth beating the dead horse. So there's probably not much that I want to force here. The Ashiok is not particularly good. I think what I'm going to do is put back Ashiok and force. Go ahead and fetch. So I have red, red. I just need something that can give me black, black as well for Kroxa next turn. So this will do. So we're going to go blue, black, play Lazav. Maybe I'm supposed to attack with Bob. I timed them out because I said we were moving past the statistics of it, because it was distracting me and making the chat really boring. And then he kept talking about it. So what I'm playing towards now is creating a Lazav Kroxa. Oh, geez. Is creating a Lazav Kroxa plus a second Kroxa from graveyard. So I can attack for 6, which just gets chumped, so it's really no damage. Or they just take it and it doesn't matter, or they discard a card. I can play Bob afterwards. The issue about, like, potentially going for a win off, like, Kroxa trigger plus switch to Dreadnought afterwards is that it requires me to cast a Brainstorm. And if I don't hit Dreadnought, I'm basically dead. And if I do hit Dreadnought, my opponent just blocks and it's all moot. But I might be high rolling towards hitting Plague Engineer. Those are not Plague Engineer. Unfortunate. I'm not even sure that I can realistically attack with this and expect to live. It takes the card out of my opponent's hand, which is maybe worth, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 damage. So maybe I have to. Like, if my opponent's last card is a cantrip, this is worth a lot. Alright, it was a Force of Will. So I need my opponent to brick. I don't fear the combo anymore. But relatively speaking, I have not removed a lot of cantrips. There's 4 cantrips in exile of probably 12-ish. But I'm pretty much dead to a castable spell. Yeah. Alright, so just confirm 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah. Womp womp. We put up a good fight there. So folks, just throwing it out there, we have not hit our sub goal for the day yet of funding the Thursday stream. If you're enjoying my content and you enjoyed turn 1 Ashiok off Dark Ritual, please consider throwing your Twitch Prime money this way this month. Felchmaster, thank you very much for your continued support in this match versus, it appears, Steel Stompy. Turn 1 Ashiok is probably doing almost nothing in that case, which is super unfortunate. We would have been much better off playing Bob there. Yeah, see, like, they just ignore it. So real talk, I maybe shouldn't even mill them. Because milling them increases the number of things that they can hit if they are playing Karn Great Creator. I think I'm supposed to just play the Dreadnought instead of the Bob, but it's pretty close. I think... Why does milling them seem good? Like, legitimate question. So the downside of milling them and sending these cards to exile is that they can get these back with Karn the Great Creator later. What does milling them accomplish? Just the right guy, Justin third guy. Thank you very much for your support as well. We have now hit my sub goal for the day. I can't think of any reason to mill them. Oh, milling us seems good here. Milling us seems good here. Yes, that seems fine. I agree with that. My bad. So my opponent can create some very large creatures. And potentially get through some blockers. So, ultimate price. This is not a stream for you and me. This is a stream for me and 135 viewers. So if I say we're moving past the statistics, we're moving past. And if I've already lost you, then I've already lost you, and goodbye. But if you want to stick around for legacy content, I'm not banning you. But I can't spend, 10 minutes of my time talking statistics with you. That does no one any good on this entire stream. That being said, if you post another statistics comment, you're out. So hitting a Braid off this Brainstorm does interesting things. I can't Kroxa back from Graveyard. I'm one land short of doing that. I could Brainstorm, then Ashiok mill myself to get some stuff into graveyards. Those cards are bad. Is the Stifle bad? Stifle's bad if I play Bob. Because the Stifle stops a Steel Overseer activation or a Factory. I think I'm going to keep my 4th land here. Throw back the Stifle. I'll fetch. Take another Underground Sea. That'll leave me with black, black, red, red with everything that I have going on here. Before I give my opponent any more information, though, I will make my attack. It's very possible that I'll end up finishing my opponent off with Kroxa triggers this game. Rather than actually killing them with Dreadnought. If I wasn't streaming, I would have sat down and done the math for how much toughness they can get via blocking next turn, and like calculated that out a little bit harder, and to see like whether or not it's truly better to play the Bob, that sort of thing. This is like so close to good. Fornia, thank you very much for your support as well. Alright, so what do we have for Steel Stompy? Plague Engineers, Liliana's Triumphs are good. Force of Wills are probably good enough to play. Is Torpor Orb secretly going to be crazy this match? I don't know the wording of a lot of the X creatures off the top of my head. I don't know if Torpor Orb is going to turn some of those into 0/0s. I don't think so. But I would have to double check. So the Ashioks are going to be bad. I don't want those. So that's for these four. My Dark Rituals are going to get a little bit worse if I'm not powering out Ashioks. But they still power out like Bobs, and powering out Lily Last Hope is crazy. I think my Stifles are going to be slightly worse than against a normal deck. I think I'll randomly trim one land. Maybe I'm not even supposed to Thoughtseize? So, like, when my opponent's on the play, I don't know that, like, after they play turn one relevant thing, that Thoughtseize is going to be where I want to be. And maybe I'm not even supposed to attack their hand at all, and this land is just better than the Thoughtseize. And I can just play, like, one more blue card for Force of Will purposes. I'm not really sure. One Thoughtseize is awkward. Maybe the Stifle I boarded out would have been better. Yes, keep. Turn 1, land Dark Ritual Bob. Turn 2, draw a land, freeze a Dreadnought, do a Happy Dance. Nice, nice. I need to think about Wasteland, I guess. But again, if I play Dark Ritual into Bob, I care less about Wasteland. I guess playing the first one around Wasteland is pretty free, because then that gives me relatively safe Dreadnought next turn. But I might not play my next one around Wasteland. Oh, sorry about that, folks. Shuckle has things to say. Nice. Good decision. Walking Ballista. Pretty good against Bob. I respect that. So now that I don't have the Bob, I will probably continue to play around Wasteland. Oh, no, I can't. So I don't have Basic Island. I have Mountain. That's okay. Let's play this Arc Dreadnought. I believe that is the correct play here. What does opponent have that can remove this? Any? Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna take a drink of water here, and then we'll do our debrief. Yeah, JD, I really enjoyed this one. Okay, so thoughts on the deck list. Number one, in game one, I think we're weak to Delver. So this card has no impact on the board. And then all of these cards essentially... I'm going to overstate here. Okay, I'm going to overstate. And then all of these cards, these 15 cards, essentially do nothing in a Delver matchup unless you compile something else to go with them, right? And when you're trying to get two things to work simultaneously in the same turn versus like the Daze, Pierce, Force deck that also has a decent amount of pressure, I'm not sure that that's an okay place to be. And I think additionally, a lot of times, like if you're playing Blind versus Delver, you might like Dark Ritual into something like this on turn one, and then they just go like land Delver, and you go, uh-oh. So maybe we should have more things in the sideboard to address Delver. The other thing that I felt like we couldn't answer today is Planeswalkers. So I think that if something like an Oko, a Karn gets in play, I don't really have as many answers to that as I would like. I also have some strange dotted lines around my 3 CMC column now. I don't really know what's up with that. Oh, they're gone. Never mind. Oh, that must have been from me clicking away from OBS. You might not even have been able to see that. So Planeswalkers seem like another issue. But I don't know how many answers you can actually fit into the deck to some of this sort of stuff. Because, like, we're not playing a tier 1 deck here, right? We're playing something that is, like, fun and interesting and doing something powerful. And since you're dedicating, like, 14, probably closer to 10 slots for post-sideboard games towards this plan, I don't know how many cards you actually get to board in a lot of times. So I don't know that you can afford to play something like Sorcerous Spyglass. Just like the mana cost is kind of rough, as silly as it is to say that. Like, you have a lot of things to do with your mana. Like, this is 2 followed by 4, this is 3, this is 3, this is 2 followed by some extra. But something like Pithing Needle wouldn't be unreasonable, I don't think. Or maybe just something like Brazen Borrower, since that can, like, bounce some things, buy you some time, and then trade with a Delver afterwards. Like, that's probably not crazy. I don't know how good Pierce is in the sideboard. Like, I get that it's extra counterspells and extra blue cards for Force of Will, but like, I wonder if these slots could be used for something else better. Similarly, do we really need 3 Liliana's Triumph if we're only playing 2 Lilianas? Like, would this be better as some combination of, like, Fatal Push, Bolt, and so forth to, like, interact from a couple of different angles? Yeah, more Plague Engineer seems fine. I also think you can make an argument for the main deck of Braids just being Lightning Bolts. These are definitely more flexible and, like, kind of effectively open up some sideboard slots for you. But, like, with Bob, you kind of want a bunch of cheap things that you can play. And I think that would be reasonable as well. I think that's what I have to say about this. All right, what do we have coming up next on Monday in the good old donation queue? So the next deck list is one that I gifted to the artist who made my thumbnails. For those of you who are familiar with the YouTube channel side of things, I had an artist who made me a couple of different colors of this thumbnail so that I could, like, sort between my daily Death and Taxes stuff and my streams to make it, like, quicker for the viewers. So my artist requested that I play Death, which is this like 2-card Monty sort of deck list where we're Leyline, Helm, Pseudo Storm with Tendrils, Painter, Grindstone, Hex Mage, Depths. So that'll be Monday night's stream. It should be a blast. Thought Scour seems a lot better than this clunky stuff. Okay, so 2 different comments I want to address here. Let's go back to this deck list. Number 1, Thought Scour seems a lot better than this clunky stuff. Yeah, it's very possible that a little bit of self-mill is okay, but Ashiok is self-mill, right? So we saw that against Steel Stompy, where it didn't benefit us to mill them, and it benefited us to mill ourselves to potentially hit Kroxa. So Thought Scour is not crazy, but I do wonder if we have enough graveyard synergy for that to be good. Like, we have Lazav and Kroxa, we have 5 cards that deal with the graveyard. I wonder if that's actually enough. Like, Ponder might be better than Thought Scour in this deck list. Then the other thing was, the deck's sweet, but why Ashiok and Ritual? Is it actually just for fun? I kind of missed the synergy. So Ashiok is potentially something that shouldn't be in this deck list. Like, the self-mill is cool, but Ashiok is also something that can just win you the game, right? So, like, you play Dark Ritual into Ashiok, and if you're on the play turn 1, that beats a lot of decks. But if you were looking to play with this shell, I could totally see cutting the Ashioks and playing a couple other Planeswalkers, like play like 2 Liliana of the Veil. Because like Lily of the Veil also has some graveyard-based synergy, right? Like you can discard Kroxa, cast Kroxa. Like that's not totally crazy. But you start getting to the point where if you cut these, then the Dark Rituals also look worse, and maybe you should just be playing Ponders in that shell, and if you start playing more cantrips, then you can cut some lands. There's a lot of directions you can take this deck list. So Colby, the one thing that I'll say about Gurmag Angler is that every card that you play like that makes your Bobs worse, right? So like that's part of the reason why we don't even have Force of Will in game 1 is because of the Bobs. And to a lesser extent because like we're already... Sorry, I have a thought and I don't know how to say it. We're already playing a handful... I have a thought, I don't know how to articulate it. So I'm going to move on. But, like, I guess Gurmag Angler Ashiok is kind of a combo, I guess. Like, Dark Ritual, Ashiok, minus, Ashiok minus, turn 2 Gurmag Angler. So, like, maybe it works? I don't know, I kind of want the 4th Bob in this deck list, too. Bob's really good. Live dangerously. Have you ever played Tin Fins with Bob and Emrakul in your deck at the same time? I have. It was fine. Except for that one time, it wasn't fine then. But every other time, it was fine. Alright, folks, so let me ask you, is anybody streaming Legacy right now that I can host? I don't see anyone. There's, like, one thing that has a 12-hour uptime, which I assume isn't actually still going. So is there anybody I can host that's playing some Legacy? Because I have over 100 viewers, and I would love to turn them over to someone. I see Arkin as offline. Oh, Arkin literally just went online. Oh, that's awesome. Then I'm going to host my good buddy Arkin here. I hope you all have a great day, and if you're new to the stream, please consider following. I'm doing Legacy content 3 days a week.